All right, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for that brief delay. Thank you for joining us for this afternoon's compliance training. We're going to focus on understanding the compliance review process. My name is Kirk Wilbur. I'm one of our compliance review specialists in the newly formed Compliance and Security Division. Is that better? Sorry about that. And I'm joined with my colleague, Katina Cooper. This afternoon, we're going to be walking you through some changes to our process and trying to answer some of the questions and pieces of feedback that we've received since our last session, probably about a year ago. We don't really have an agenda, but this is what we hope to cover. Starting now with a welcome, we're going to transfer over to Kurt Alt for a couple minutes to discuss the relationship that the Compliance and Security Division has with the global programs program area, move into staff introductions, and then go over our compliance review timeline and the process, the compliance review process and introduction of new tools that we've created to try to help your job a little bit and help us out. So before we get started, we just wanted to ask a couple of questions. We want to try to make this more interactive, and I know it's just a few of us up here and a lot of you, but we wanted to try to get a feel for who in the room participates in some of the programs. So could we start maybe with a show of hands or a cheer for ATP?
Ooh.
Okay, good size.
Nice. Wow.
How about EMP? Okay, FMD? Looking around. MAP? I see some hands ready to spring before the next one. QSP. Okay, and task. Great. And real quick, who traveled for this conference? Almost everyone. Okay, who traveled the furthest? Furthest, where from? Hawaii, I think, oh, someone beats Hawaii. Bangkok might beat Hawaii. We were ready to go with Hawaii. And finally, who charged their travel to FAS program funds for this conference? Okay, that was a trick question, but we wanted to ask it so you would have time to go ahead and change your allocation before submitting a claim. We are not about the gotcha. We are here to work collaboratively. So, moving along, we'd like to ask Kurt Alt to come up for just a couple minutes to talk about the relationship that the Compliance and Security Division has with the Global Programs program area. Kurt?
Well, good afternoon again. It's good to see a lot of people in their same seats and a bunch of new faces. So they asked me to talk about the relationship, compliance and the program side. And really, it's two sides of the same coin. I mean, we're on the program side, in global programs, in my division, the Program Operations Division. So we're the ones that draft the regulations, and we interpret the regulations. So that's what our role is. Their role is to take those regulations and the guidance and the materials that we have prepared, okay, and take those out into the field along with a measuring tape and ensure that you guys, or whoever it is, the participant, is following the regulation and is doing things correctly. So the compliance staff is not, they're not interpreting the regs. That's my role. They're simply saying, we want to make sure that what it says you're supposed to do, that you're actually doing. And now, they don't do that robotically, you know? I mean, we have an excellent relationship, myself and the rest of global programs with the compliance staff, and there is a lot of interaction back and forth. I mean, it's on a routine basis when there's compliance staff out in the field doing a review and something comes up unexpected or they have a question, they'll reach out directly to me and say, hey, we're on site, what do you think about this? Or when they get back, they'll engage and they'll say, hey, we have a question about this, what should we do? And so we routinely have those kinds of conversations to make sure that they and I and everybody in FAS is on the same page as far as interpretation of the regs. And it doesn't stop there. So, of course, they're going to go through their process. You're going to get all kinds of detail there. They go out and they do a review. They bring it home. There may or may not be a conversation with me. They go through their process that they'll explain. At some point, a draft report ends up on, in global programs. And it goes through a review in global programs. Starts with the marketing specialist or the grants program manager if it's a grants-only participant. And it works its way through that chain, and then it comes to program operations, and it works its way through, and it comes ultimately to me. And everybody in that chain in global programs has an opportunity to comment on it and ask questions or offer suggestions, including myself. And I'm sure these guys, they'll be the first to tell you, I'm not at all shy about bleeding all over a report with my big red pen. And those questions are, you know, they're interpretation questions. I'm confused by something, I don't understand it, or maybe it's I don't agree with this. I think it's a misinterpretation. And then that goes back down to them, and they take that, and they'll look at that, and they'll make the correction. If they feel like a conversation is necessary, they'll reach out, and we'll have a conversation directly about that. And then finally, a report is prepared. The final report, that comes to me, then we put it under a cover sheet signed by Bill Bomersheim, and that's sent to you guys. So that's the first step in the process where you receive the report. Again, I don't want to step on their toes, but I know that there is an opportunity to interact with the compliance staff following the review, but that is not a negotiation. That's purely for you to provide missing elements to them. This receipt is missing, this piece of information is missing, this document is missing. We need that. You got 2 weeks to provide it. The point where you're able to enter into a negotiation or have a conversation about findings in a report is when you receive the final report from us, from global programs. Then you reach out and you say, hey, I don't agree with this, or here's my justification, or I want it, let's talk about this. Then you have that negotiation with me. And I have the ability and the authority and the responsibility to say, yeah, okay, here we'll do this or we'll do that. These guys don't do that. They simply say, it looks to us like this is incorrect. It looks to us like this is wrong. And they're simply reporting what they find. So it's two sides of the same coin, but it's a collaborative relationship, you know, and we work together. And I think that's probably about all that I wanted to say and all that I have time to say. So I'll be here for the rest of it. So, you know, if there's something else you want, let me know.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. How about some applause? So just going off what Kurt said, two sides of the same coin, that's something we've really been focused on with the recent reorganization of FAS, and we want to project the image, which is the reality of one FAS. So even though we're on different sides of the programs, we are all working together. So thank you, Kurt. Now we'd like to take an opportunity to introduce the compliance review staff who have joined us this afternoon. So if you are in the room and could please come up to the stage. Sure. So as I said earlier, my name is Kirk Wilbur. I've been with the Compliance and Security Division for just about 2.5 years. Ooh. Yep, stairs are on the far side. And with FAS for about 8 years.
Hello, I'm Katina Cooper. I've been with FAS since December 2015. This year, the groups I will be reviewing is U.S. wheat, California table grape, raisin, U.S. pecan growers council, and U.S. apple export council.
Hello, I'm Kim Cash, the Director for Compliance, and I don't get to go out on the reviews much. I probably will get out to at least one locally this year, but between Emily and I, we get to read about them all and review the reports. So in that respect, we get familiarized with everyone that we are seeing each year. So look forward to working with you all as we get through fiscal year 2020.
Hi, I'm Emily Hamowitz. I'm the Deputy Director of the division. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces of groups I've worked with when I was a compliance review specialist here. I've been with the division just over 3 years and look forward to keep working with you all.
Hi, I'm Eugene Irvin, Compliance Review Specialist since June of 2015. I've worked with quite a few of you, and I'm looking forward to working with more of you. And I'm glad to be here. I'm in an informal setting for a change, and, and hopefully I'll get to interact and get to know some people while I'm here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Hahn. I've been with compliance since October 2016, and this year I will review SASTA and U.S. Apple Export Council. I'm also the program coordinator for Food Aid.
Hello, I'm Karen Richards. I joined the team earlier this year. For 2020, I will be reviewing U.S. Wheat Associates, U.S. Dairy Export Council, U.S. Livestock Genetics Export, and CalPure Produce. And I look forward to meeting some of you.
Good afternoon. My name is Trinisha Samuels. I'm also fairly new on the compliance review team. This year, I'll be working with WUSATA, that's a state regional group, U.S. Pecan Growers, American Peanut Council, Mercy Corps, U.S. Livestock Genetics Export, National Watermelon Promotion Board. Did you get my name? Trinisha Samuels. Hopefully I'll be working with you. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Sue Owen, and I joined the team in April, so I'm a newbie, but I've had a chance to go out to 3 different groups, had a great opportunity for learning and taking in the important work you all do. This coming year, the reviews that I have laid out are North American Millers Association, Dry Bean Council, and Dry Pea and Lentil Council. Thank you.
So thank you to everyone who could be here with us this afternoon. Greg Yike is another compliance reviewer on our team, and he just returned from a post-review in Asia this past week, and so he'll be joining us later in the week. So if you have a review with Greg, he can, or you can touch base with him then. All right, so moving right along, I would like to now turn the presentation over to my colleague, Katina Cooper, who's going to discuss the compliance review timeline.
Hello again, I'm Katina Cooper. I would like to discuss the compliance review timeline with you all today. We received a lot of feedback and questions regarding our timeline and our process. So we want to briefly walk you through the entire timeline of when certain things take place throughout the review. The compliance review process was created to kind of develop a form of consistency, accuracy, and a way for someone else to replicate our reviews and be able to get the same results. The 3 phases of our timeline is the pre-trip portion of the review, the actual on-site phase of the review, and the reporting, the post part of the review and the reporting. So I'll start here with this flow chart demonstrating the pre-trip phase of the review. The flow chart shows how a review starts with the actual date. So what reviewers do is in the prior year, usually August or September, we will reach out to you all just to see what a convenient time is for the next fiscal year to have the review. As we reach out, some things that we're collecting is basic background information pertaining to the programs that you all have been working on. When we attempt to schedule reviews, there are a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration. First, the compliance reviewers request documentation 45 days and some other documentation 30 days prior to the review. That need to be taken into consideration for you all's schedule as to the best time for us to come out, as you see here, laid out here. As part of the review, we have started doing sampling. So we sample expenses and contracts. So during the beginning of the review, we will provide a documentation checklist. This checklist will map out all the things that's required, again, like I said, within 30 to 45 days. After certain information is provided, as you see during the 1 month prior to departure, or to the on-site review, we choose a sample selection of expenses and also contracts that we're going to look at. Because we're sampling, we'll not be able to catch all compliance issues or concerns, but we try to catch as much as we can within the scope of our review. Also, during the pre-trip portion, we have meetings. We meet with the program coordinator and the program manager. We also meet with global programs prior to coming out, just to get a feel of the collaboration that's gone back and forth and the workup of the programs that you guys are working on. Also, during the pre-trip, the last portion, we have a conference call with you all. During that conference call, we like to lay out the logistics of the review, such as your location, what's the best time to come and go within the office, when your office open, and to just try to get a feel and a layout to where we will be working, what we will be dealing with once we're on site. The second part of the review is the on-site portion of the review. We receive feedback regarding the best way to prepare for a review. The biggest thing for a review is to be organized and prepared. That's the biggest thing. Throughout the review, we also would like for you all to ask us questions, all the reviewers, throughout the entire review, not just this phase, but at the beginning, this phase, and also in the post-review phase. During the review, we also, as reviewers, would like to know anything that will affect the review, such as if the office is relocating, if there's scheduled leave or meeting during the review. That will allow us to adjust our schedule to see if we need to extend the review, shorten the review, or anything of that nature. And we do understand unforeseen circumstances do occur. So while on site, if something unforeseen comes up, communicate that with your reviewer. That will kind of allow things to move a little smoothly and allow us to adjust our schedule as needed. To ensure consistency, we use templates, review steps, and we also have a technical review process. So before we get to that portion, this is a listing, it's kind of cut off here, but these are a listing of documents and areas that we review. So as you see, as we get down to the end of the on-site review, we also have an exit conference. During the exit conference, this is where we provide a summary of concerns and findings that we come across as compliance reviewers. Throughout the process, however, we collaborate with you all as to what concerns we come across or any questions we have. And at that time during the review, we ask our questions and allow you all to make corrections or resolve any concerns that we have. Whatever is not resolved during the time of the on-site review, we would discuss it during the exit conference and provide what we call exit notes. Exit notes are items that were not resolved during the on-site review. things that are pending, which may be documentation, a better explanation of something, but all of that is covered. And what we cover in the exit conference should not be a surprise to you, because throughout the review, as I said, the reviewer and the participant, you all, we would collaborate throughout the entire process. It's basically, during the exit conference, we provide a summary. Then we are, as compliance reviewers, provide the exit notes within 2 days back into our office. So you should receive the exit notes within 2 days. After that's received, I'm sorry, 2 weeks to respond to us with any requested documentation that's provided on the exit notes. Now we have a pop quiz. First question. This is dealing with the exit notes, the compliance exit notes. After the exit notes are provided, what is the amount of time permitted to provide documentation back to us for the pending items? Woo.
All right, second part of the pop quiz. Verifying documentation. What do you need to provide to show proof of performance for an approved activity, such as a promotional event or payments to vendors?
Anybody?
There we go, there's a hand. Photos and trip reports. Great start. Anyone else?
In the back.
Receipts, proof of payments. Excellent. Contracts. Anyone else?
Okay.
Post notification for travel. Great, thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
We're going to touch on that in a couple of minutes. Back to you.
The final phase of our compliance review process is the post-trip and reporting process. This is the process that breaks out after, once we've done the on-site review, this is what we do once we're back, as I say, home, okay? So you guys are provided 2 weeks to give us all the documentation or pending items that are requested. We review them, we analyze them, review them, and we sometimes will reach out to you all if we have any questions. There are times we receive exit notes and it's not totally clear how things are mapped out or what you provided, what does it mean or even relate to what we requested. And so we will have that collaboration with you all to try to obtain clarification as to the documents sent. After that, the compliance reviewers have 4 weeks to go through all our review steps, which is for all the documentation that you saw that we review. We have review steps. We finalize our review steps and create a report. The report then goes through a technical review process. Again, I emphasized at the beginning, this whole process is to create accuracy, consistency, and a way that someone else can replicate our review and obtain the same findings. So this technical review process does that. Once the report is completed and it goes through the technical review process, the program manager, program coordinator will review them, the report and our work papers within our review step. And we do a lot of collaboration back and forth. Sometimes we're not always clear in what we have, and so we collaborate back and forth about things that we saw, and also we have evidence of things we saw by scanning them and putting them with our work papers. After it goes through the technical review process, it then goes to global programs. Global programs, we provide them 4 weeks to review the report and provide any feedback or corrections they feel is needed within the report. Once it come back to us, the compliance reviewers, we make the corrections, or again, we may collaborate with global programs as to the comments or the feedback that was provided, just to get clarity sometimes or to work things out. And accuracy, that's the biggest thing, to make sure what we have is accurate. Once we come to a consensus, the report then moves to our director, Kim Cash, who then reviews it. She will sometimes come to us. We will collaborate about what's in the report. She takes a week to do her part, do her review, provide her signature, and then the final report goes back to global programs to be distributed to you all. So now we ask for your thoughts.
Okay, first, what do you think are some of the most common findings we've identified? Travel.
Anybody else?
Samples, so product samples? Yes. In the back?
Government hourly rate.
Contracting rates.
Anyone else?
Lack of
Lack of
documentation.
yes.
Yep. So what can you do to prevent these findings? What are some of the best practices that your groups have implemented? Please.
Create a checklist for travel, especially the things you need, following up and make sure the post-certification's done. And the way to do that is to do a travel authorization to your boss, because if you don't have that, you can't purchase your ticket, or you can't take the certification.
That sounds great. Who has a travel checklist?
Nice.
Who's considering implementing a travel checklist?
Now I'll turn this portion over to Kurt, who will talk about the self-assessment.
All right, thanks, Katina. So as we went through the last section about the review timeline, you probably saw there were about 8 different aspects or items that we really focus on within the review. And one of the, I guess, consistent pieces of feedback we've received is that groups would like us to come out every year. You just saw almost our entire team up on the stage, and if you look around the room, the number of groups that are represented here, let alone the number of groups that receive FAS funding, I think you can see there's a bit of a disconnect in our staff size, and we also conduct 2 other types of program reviews, overseas post reviews and food assistance reviews. So what we would like to do is introduce this new tool called the self-assessment tool. You can use this anytime, but especially on years when you don't have a compliance review scheduled. This is sort of your own internal checklist to see what we're looking at and test yourselves. So as I said, we have 8 sort of programmatic aspects that we look at. If you've, bless you, had a on-site review recently, you may be familiar with some of the questions that we ask. And for each of these sort of review steps, we're going to go into the self-assessment and let you see how it works. As I go to the next few slides, don't worry if you can't see either on your smart device or on the screen. You will have access to this both through the USADEC app and by email later on. So this is really a tool for you, but we're going to explain how it works. So first up, advances. You can see in the top of this box, the dark shaded cell there, the questions to consider. These are the questions that, based on the relevant program regulations, program notices, and other grant regulations, we are trying to verify while on site. So for example, with advances, the first question we're going to be looking at is, does your group receive advances? So who in the room receives advances? That's it? Boy. Oh, okay, one for advances, great. So for each of these, the topic is outlined first in dark gray. Do you have a process to receive advances, to put them into an interest-bearing account, to fully spend them down within 90 days, or the allowable time as established in the program regulations? In the left-hand side, the lower box there, items to review. So this is what we're actually looking at on site to answer the questions in the upper cell. The center box outlines the program regulations or the program notices for each of the market development programs. So you know exactly where to look in the regulations to see why we're looking at these questions, why we're asking them, and what's required for full documentation. And then the column or the cell on the right, common compliance findings. So as I mentioned, 90 days to fully expend or return an advance, and failure to keep an advance or advanced funds in an interest-bearing account. So quick question, who has copies of the program regulations saved in their internet browsers or to their desktops? And the program notices? Yeah, our audio dropped, so we've got a little help from Kim here. Okay, so a recommendation or a best practice that we've observed are when you receive program funds, pull up the regulations, bookmark them. When you have a question, check them again. If the question isn't answered by the program regulations, check with your marketing specialist or check for program notices. A lot of resources are out there to help you, but we're trying to build on that with this document to point you in the right direction right off the start. And I'm sorry, I should add, for each of these topics, if you have questions that would be good for the group, please feel free to raise your hand. We were trying to receive questions through the app, but it's not quite working for us, so if you have questions, the session is being recorded, and we can do our best to answer them now or get back to you with an answer later. No? Okay. So the second topic is administrative and financial management. So what are we looking at here? We're trying to identify if the group has a travel policy, if you have a chart of accounts or an audit trail that we can clearly track documentation, whether it's contracting or vendor for a trade show, travel invoicing. The idea is if a program regulation requires a receipt for $25 or $75, we like to be able to see the receipt tying to a voucher, tying to a travel authorization, and then all the way through whether it's a consultant who submits a claim to you and then ties into the claim or invoice that you submit to the Global Programs Office. So that's sort of the audit trail that we're looking for. If you receive $750,000 in federal funds per year, we're also going to be reviewing your A133. So if you're going through this checklist and you say, I had $750,000 last year, did I conduct a single audit? Or did my comptroller submit that? No? Sorry, I thought I heard someone say no. Other topics that we're looking at under the administrative and financial management step include your fraud prevention plan. So that's submitted to OTP and approved by OTP. But we're not just looking for a rubber stamp or that the plan exists. We're looking to see that in the event of fraud or potentially fraudulent activities, you're following your plan. So a lot of the program operations are really clearly outlined either in the program notices or in the regulations. And if you follow them and follow this document, you'll be well on your way to being in compliance. And sorry, any questions on administrative or financial documentation? Okay. Next up is contracting. So who employs contractors, overseas or domestic? Short-term consultants, staff in foreign offices. So this is the step that's going to try to outline contracting based on the regulations and on the contracting program notice and your approved contracting procedures. So something that we see quite often is reimbursement of an overseas contractor above the GS 15 Step 10 rate. Anyone familiar with that? We don't need hands this time, just a nod. Ooh, that's a good one. So not just the rate that's established in the contract, but also is the contractor invoicing you in accordance with the contract? If you say you'll pay $10 an hour and they're billing you for $12 an hour, is there a new contract or is this an oversight? The idea of these tools is to help you just check yourself before submitting a claim to FAS, because no one likes to pay back money. And if you can catch yourself early, then you can reprogram those funds to conduct more activities. And now we'd like to introduce a new tool to go along with the contracting step here. This is a flowchart that some of our colleagues put together to clearly help you with yes/nos for when a contractor can exceed the GS 15 Step 10. This is for foreign contracting. So again, this should be in your app or available by email. I apologize, it's a little bit difficult to see, but starting at the top, we have end result contract on the left and fee for service contract on the right. So does anyone or can anyone explain the difference between a fee for service or end result contract? Lots of whispers. Anyone brave? Yes, please.
It's basically salary versus hourly. It's like, so for an end result, you're getting a certain amount. For fee for service, you would be getting an amount per hour or for the amount of time you were working.
So that's very close. The end result has a deliverable. There's something that's going to be provided by the end of the contract, and usually the vendor is going to be billing you a flat rate throughout the contract, no matter how many hours they work. The fee for service, as you said, is based on the hourly rate or the daily rate. So let's stay with the fee for service here going down. As you collect bids or solicit for vendors to conduct the work, if people come in under the GS 1510 or bids, then, and you select one of them, then you're all set. I guess for 2019, the rate's about $66.40 per hour or $531 per day. And who knows where they can find or where you can find this information, the daily rate limit per year. I hear it. Thank you. Yes, the annual program notice is issued by the global program. If you're in the back, we just had horns going off. Oh, it's an elk, excuse me. So if you can't find a vendor under the GS 15 Step 10, what do? You follow your approved contracting procedures to determine which bid you can select. So when is bidding required? Anyone? Oh, we have a question. So we have a question that came in from the app. I guess it is working now. The question was, I had a contractor bill for 12 hours in a day. Is that allowable? If it's under the daily limit, anyone else? Yes. That's a bingo. Yes. So check first your contracting procedures and the contract that you have established with the vendor. And if it's within the terms of that contract, then yes, it could be allowable. So this is not a yes or no answer. It depends on your circumstance, but it may be allowable in some cases. Back to the flow chart. If the hourly rate is greater than the GS 15 Step 10, moving down to yes, we're in the, I do have a pointer, into this box. Did the global program's approved bidding process reveal a contractor was not available? So this is a little bit double negative-ish, but yes, a contractor was not available below the rate, so you use your approved contracting procedures to determine the most reasonable bid that will be sufficient to complete the work. If a contractor was available below the rate, contact your marketing specialist to receive exemption or receive guidance as to how you should proceed, whether it requires rebidding or selecting that contractor at the rate provided. Yes.
If you go through the bidding process and you only get one proposal, and you go out and rebid it again, you might get a couple more. At what point are you able to say that's fair market value for that contractor? If you know, the sole source thing, because you only got one proposal back?
So from my understanding, it's not sole source if you actually conduct the bidding process. What is required to establish a market rate? I would say that would depend on the number of responses and I suppose how many responses you got. But your marketing specialist would be able to say, yes, we agree this is a market rate, or I guess based on justifications following your approved contracting procedures, would this be similar or equivalent to previous contracts for similar work? Does that answer the question? Okay. So again, this tool will be available to you, and we'd love feedback on it, but also love any questions that you may have throughout the week here. Okay. Next, contributions. So this is one of the more challenging steps for us sometimes, depending on the accounting that's set up with your group. But basically, what we're looking to see is, can we follow your contributions that are at the end of the year reported in UES and then documentation maintained on site with your group? So the program award letters will indicate what your required contribution level is or a flat rate requirement. And what we're trying to verify on site is if you have first met that requirement and then second, met it by eligible sources. So not double counted travel, for example, where you're reimbursed by FAS and then also claiming that industry contributed to the travel. Can anyone think of an ineligible contribution? No? Oh, all the way. Staff time. So depending on the program, staff time may or may not be allowed, but under your program, that could be an ineligible contribution. Same goes for office parking. Sometimes allowable, sometimes not, depending on the program. Okay? Program expenses. This is really, some would say, the meat of the review. This is where we spend a lot of time on site going through your invoice claims. If you are documenting the claims by hard copy, this is where we're getting all of the paper cuts. If you're electronic, this is where we're going cross-eyed. But what are we looking at here? Have you only claimed allowable, authorized, documented, reasonable, or documented and reasonable program, promotion, and trade show expenses? So what, again, we're trying to do here is follow the audit trail. Was the expenditure approved in the marketing plan? Was it allowable under the program regulations? Did the work actually occur? And then was it documented? Were exchange rates calculated correctly? So this is really where we spend a lot of time, but we would like to look a little bit at STRI. So who has had a STRI event? Okay, who can tell me what STRI stands for? Cheryl. Great, so if you couldn't hear, that's sales and trade related expenditures. So these are, another applause, yes. So these are expenditures that are incurred overseas, and they are tied to sort of building new relationships or supporting existing relationships for foreign buyers or to promote foreign markets. Each U.S. embassy has established annual rates for the different type of events, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, cocktail reception, or coffee and tea. And then these rates are per person. The invitee list needs to be at least 50% foreign, so foreign nationals. Foreign nationals do not count if they're employed by your overseas office. They're then considered American. U.S. embassy workers are considered American even if they're foreign national. So the threshold needs to be at least 50% foreign invitee. Does anyone know if STRI is allowed in the United States? With prior approval. Great, thank you. Making our job easier going forward. You can see in the right-hand column also some of the other common findings. Branded activities missing U.S. origin statement. Reimbursement for expenditures not related to a program. Unallowable expenditures such as product samples. Oh, we'll take it right now. Okay, the question was, can cooperators claim international travel insurance, is that health insurance, and visas? And travel visas under the MAP program? Does anyone know the answer? Cheryl, one more? Yes, they can if it does not exceed the full fare economy rate. So cost construct, make sure that the cost does not exceed the full fare economy, and then you can spend up to that rate for your travel, airfare, and related expenditures. Okay. So, do you want to turn on the microphone? Or you just have to press it there?
Is this an allowable expense? Idaho Rotten Potatoes Association had a customer rewards program and provided their dedicated customers the following: season tickets to the national games, free tickets for two to the Baltimore Aquarium, and a 2-night stay in a presidential suite at the MCM Resort at the National Harbor. Are these expenses allowable? Does anyone know? I think the biggest question is, are they reasonable?
Yeah. So the answer would be no. Unless you can justify and it's included in a approved activity plan. One more question. Oh, that keeps going. We're not going to play that one again. All right. I'm sorry?
Who approves domestic?
So domestic STRI should be approved by the Global Programs Office in advance. So if you're going to have a domestic STRI event, go ahead and reach out to your marketing specialist for prior approval. Okay, another question. When is a promotional item a sample? So promotional item, a giveaway. Okay, a promotional item, if no one cares to answer, is considered a sample, which is not a reimbursable expense under MAP, when that item is something that your group or a member group produces or represents. So if you are producing, I don't know, apples, you could not be giving away apples. that would make it a product sample. Okay? Next up, everyone's favorite topic, travel. We tried to catch you at the beginning with a learning opportunity. Glad to hear nobody charged USADEC for their travel expenditures this weekend. Or this week, I guess, we're on to Monday. Items that we're looking at. Does the participant group have an established and enforced travel policy that adheres both to the federal travel regulations and the Market Development Program regulations? Again, similar to the last topic, or two ago, are the travel expenses claimed allowable, authorized, documented, and reasonable? Are they within the per diem limits? And has documentation been maintained for coach class seating upgrades or alternative travel routing? So this ties into something that we see quite often, and I touched on a couple of minutes ago. When is a cost comparison required? Pardon? No? Okay, we'll cover that in just a minute then. What we want to do is introduce another tool based on feedback and requests from USADEC, or from you through USADEC to us. So this is a resource for the federal travel regulations. As I mentioned earlier, saving or bookmarking copies of the program regulations can really help you out. And the same is true for the federal travel regulations, but for anyone who's tried to read them in the past, you know they can be very difficult to interpret or even find what you're looking for. So some of our colleagues put this together to identify some common answers to recent findings. Again, this will be provided through the app, but also available by email. So when am I eligible for allowable per diem or actual expenses? Anyone? It's up here. No? Okay, we're getting tired. I understand. But this resource is really cool. It's hyperlinked on the PDF, so you can jump right to the relevant sections of the federal travel regulations, which you know is between, 500 and 600 pages long and multiple different sections. So this is going to help you try to answer some of the questions we've been identifying. All right, yeah, let's hear them.
So one of them is going back to program expenses, but with product samples being eligible under ATP when for a trade event, how should this be documented?
That is a great question. As far as being documented, I would say it needs to be documented in the same way any other eligible expenditure would be. But as far as a product sample being allowable for the trade event, we'll have to look at that. It may be a good question for your marketing specialist. So samples are allowable under ATP? Okay, you heard it here. Sure. Yeah. Okay, the question was, if a business class ticket is less than the full fare economy rate, does a cooperator need to get approval or prior approval? So the answer is no, as long as you have conducted a cost comparison and maintained that documentation to show us during an on-site review that the cost was actually lower than the full fare economy. Okay, one more.
What if your travel agent writes a note on the flight documents that the price is under full fare?
Okay, so if you're working with a travel agent and they enter a memo to say that the business class or other class is lower than full fare economy, is this sufficient documentation? Pardon? Right, so they need to list the rate for the full fare economy flight, and they should really state that it's the same flight routing and show the same dates as well. Okay. So we have some travel questions up here. International dateline. Okay. Staff of the Wyoming Fresh Tomato Council traveled from Omaha, Nebraska to Singapore for 5 days and claimed the following: 75% per diem on the first day, 100% per diem for days 2 through 4, and 75% per diem on the last day, day 5. Great sound effect. So was this claimed correctly? Right, the answer is no. It may actually have worked out in this case, which is why the international dateline is so challenging. But the proper way to calculate the international dateline is 75% on the first day, 0% on the second day. That day that you're crossing the dateline, you lose a day, and per diem is based on elapsed time. 100% for the remaining days up until the final day, when the traveler receives 175%. Did that make sense? If it didn't, you'll have to look at the FTR tool that we put together. That's absolutely correct. If they are going to just one per diem location across the international dateline, it's not going to make a difference. But if they change locations, it will make a difference, because on the way out, it's based on the destination they're arriving to, and on the way back, it's based on the destination they're leaving from. So if there's a change in per diem, they may end up being over or under reimbursed. Okay, we already touched on this one, so it should be easy. When do I need a cost comparison for airfare, and what should it include? It looks a little bit like this. You can find it through your travel agent or through an online flight search. Remember, it needs to be conducted before the ticket's purchased. If you're trying to establish dates or rates after the travel has occurred, you're not going to be able to verify the cost of the full fare economy flight. So in this case, in this example, premium class would be a reimbursable or allowable reimbursable expenditure. Okay, one more knowledge check before moving on. I'm traveling for an approved activity, but I can't find a hotel room under the maximum per diem rate. What should I do? A, reserve a room even though it exceeds the per diem rate. Charge the full amount to FAS. And we can put hands up if you hear an answer you like. No one for that? Brave, okay. B, reserve a room even though it exceeds the per diem rate. Charge the maximum allowable per diem to FAS and charge the remainder to industry. One for that? 2, 3, okay, I've lost count, but it's a popular choice so far. C, refer to my organization's internal travel policy. Request approval to exceed the maximum per diem up to 300% before making my reservation. Okay, that looks like a good one. I guess we're tired, but. D, reserve a room even though it exceeds the per diem rate, but charge FAS for the amount over per diem as a miscellaneous expense. Okay, so the correct answer is actually B or C. We like to highlight that there's not always just one right answer. Follow-on bonus question. What about nightly lodging taxes? Yes. So in this example, what about nightly lodging taxes? How should they be reimbursed if the hotel room is over per diem? Anyone? Everyone? All the way in the back? Okay, so the answer there is the taxes need to be prorated. If you're charging industry for part of the over lodging or over per diem, then a prorated portion of tax also needs to be charged to industry or to the organization, but will not be reimbursed by FAS. However, if you followed your internal travel approval policy and you have approval to exceed the lodging rate up to 300%, the full tax rate can be reimbursed. So again, it depends on the solution, it depends on the specifics, but we're just trying to highlight that there is often more than one correct answer. Oh, okay. Question, is there a listing of airline fare class codes? That would be best answered by a travel agent. I'm sure it's out there, but by contacting the airline or travel agent, they can probably provide you with a list of fare classes. Okay, so that question was when a business class fare is requested through OTP, now global programs, what is the criteria? I think you're right. We will need a little more clarification, or your marketing specialist could probably provide the same information. Okay. So we're at the second to last, oh, Kim, sorry. Google provides fare class codes too. Good old Google. Thank you. So we're on our second to last review step, foreign staff compensation. Who has foreign offices that are staffed by foreign nationals? A few of you. All right. So what we're looking at here, has the participant claimed only allowable compensation for U.S. citizen and foreign service national FSN employees and conforms to the market development program regulations and limitations? So again, this is a bit of the GS15 step 10, but what we're really looking at here is foreign national staff. So where do you get the foreign national staff salary guide from? Thank you, the embassy. 1 point, all right. And if you're having trouble receiving the foreign national salary plan from an embassy, again, feel free to reach out to your marketing specialist. We are one FAS, and they can help receive or help you obtain those staffing plans. Other items we're looking at are employment contracts with the foreign service nationals, and we're also looking at basically, were the allowable rates billed, or were you reimbursed for items that are required under the foreign laws? So the market development program regulations are pretty specific about what is and is not allowed to be reimbursed. And then they say, unless it's required by a foreign law. So again, take a quick look at those to make sure you are following them correctly. And one of the most common items that we find, you guessed it, when foreign service nationals are paid over the allowable compensation limits. Any questions on this one before I jump ahead? No? Oh, sorry. Okay, so the question ties back to bidding, where a multi-year contract would normally require bidding every 3 years. The question was for foreign service in-country or foreign national in-country rep contracts, do they need to be rebid every 3 years? I see some head shaking. The answer is no. You need to be conducting a evaluation of these employees, but you do not need to go through a full RFP or review of bids for that position. That would be a question for the marketing specialist. What the actual definition of an in-country rep, I would say regional rep falls into that category as well, but we can follow up with the marketing specialists on that. Okay, anyone else before moving on to the last section of the self-assessment guide? Okay, program income. Quick poll, who generates program income? No one. Someone under ATP. So what are we looking at here? Suppose you do generate program income. We're trying to verify that the program income was A, generated, B, put back into the program, and C, expended within the allowable program year. So often what we're seeing is, not often, the times that we are seeing or having findings related to program income, it's because the program income is not clearly tracked. It's not possible for us to verify that the income was actually applied to an existing approved marketing activity. That's about it. No one does program income. No one has program income. Or everyone's too tired to say so. That's okay. We're toward the end of the day here. Did we get any more questions off the app?
Yeah,
One travel. Great.
if a U.S. carrier doesn't provide timely service, may a foreign carrier be used with fire?
Okay, the question was, if a U.S. carrier does not provide timely service, may a foreign carrier be used? Looking around the room, who has experienced this? Thank you. It depends. This is not a simple yes or no. There are a couple items to consider. First being where the traveler is traveling to and from. Second is one of the countries allowable under the Fly America Act. And then third, is the foreign carrier less expensive, or following the exemptions in the federal travel regulations, such as adding, I believe, 2 additional stops and 8 hours to the trip. So the question, or the answer, excuse me, is it depends. But OTP, Global Programs, trying to catch myself, has a really excellent Fly America Act flowchart. So that's on their website under program notices, and it will walk you through yes, no, when it's allowable to use a foreign carrier for specifically flying to and from the United States. So we'll go over here, or Kurt, did you have clarification on that?
Well, just to add to that, so the Fly America Act is not an FAA program regulation or a policy that we created, so we cannot exempt you from the Fly America Act requirements. If the travel is exempt for the one, it's more than 6 to 8 hours or whatever, I mean, if it meets the Fly America Act, then you can do it. Don't ask us. You don't need to ask us for approval, and we can't grant you approval or exemption if it doesn't.
In the back there.
So my question goes back to your comment about visas and being in line with your full fare economy airfare. So does purchasing a visa for travel have to line up with and be put in the same bucket as your airfare?
So according to the program regulations for MAP specifically, that's what it looks like. But visas are not real expensive, so if you find a flight that's going to fall under the full fare economy rate, you'll probably be covered there. Kurt?
I don't have a copy of the rights here, but I think the way they're written is it's airfare plus associated expenses.
Not to exceed the full fare economy rate, yeah.
So I think the flying full fare, I think, charge a visa or inoculation or something as well.
Because change fees are also combined in there as well. Right. No, the visa is not part of the airfare, but that's Kurt's saying no. Other questions? Okay, yes, sorry. Okay, so no-show fees for hotels.
When we had the question and answer session, it was brought up that we could charge no-show fees as long as we demonstrated, we had a patrician clause and demonstrated some good faith effort to minimize the cost.
Okay, so the question is no-show fees for hotels. There was a question. If you could claim the no-show fee if a good faith effort was put forward to.
If the contract contains a reasonable attrition clause and demonstrates a good faith effort to minimize costs and effectively use program resources, then it is likely that it would support the reimbursement of no-show lodging expenses. I just want to know, is there any circumstance where no-show lodging expenses are allowable? I guess we want a clarification about that.
That's a good question. Kurt, do you want to come up? These seem like a lot of them are for you.
I wanted to know, were there any circumstances in which no-show fees for hotels were reimbursable under any of the FAS programs?
So that, the language in that answer actually came out of the federal travel regulation, which says, what happens if I pay for lodging and I can't take it or something, and the answer is, if you undertook a good faith effort to try and get your money back or do something, or you demonstrated due diligence, then your agency can consider those costs as perhaps to be eligible. So we just applied that to this question, as an example of an effort to exhibit due diligence and a good faith effort to make reasonable use of program funds. A contract with a hotel that says, well, we're going to, we'll pay for 50 hotel rooms and whatever, and then you end up only 45 people show up. That could be that could be a justification for, well, we attempted to use taxpayer funds in a reasonable manner. And as long as it's reasonable and it seems like you did your job and tried to use the funds in the most effective and efficient way, it could make the case for that.
I just wanted to make sure, was there anything else that we needed to provide, like in a written manner? I mean, because if the people don't show up, like what else? I don't know, like what would be the good faith effort that we would need to show other than there is nothing, no paperwork that we would need to provide?
Yeah, I don't know. You mean that you tried to get people in the rooms?
Right, like we had, like the people sign. No, what I'm saying is we've had the people sign up.
Yep.
They've signed up, but 5 of them, like you said,
Yep.
don't show.
Yep.
So the good faith effort on our part, there's nothing else that we need to do.
No,
in
the
that case.
good faith effort is demonstrated by entering into a reasonable contract with the hotel for, here's an event, and this is we're defining what's reasonable for this, and 50 hotel rooms is reasonable, Yeah.
Thank you.
Got another one for you right there.
Oh, okay. Which one, at the top here?
Top there.
Oh, heavens, good grief. Are we allowed to exceed the dollar amount that we originally requested for an activity? An example of this would be if a program exceeded what we expected it would cost. Are we allowed to fund over the requested amount? So that's going to vary by program. For MAP and FMD and ATP, we do allow you to exceed the budget, the approved budget for an individual activity, as long as you don't go over your ceiling. You can never exceed the total ceiling for the program, but you can overspend any particular activity. For an EMP project, for a task, for a QSP, for a Section 108, where the agreement has in there a very defined budget with amounts per activity, there are thresholds by program. And if it's de minimis or if it's 20% or whatever, then it varies by the program. If it exceeds that, you're going to have to redo that line item, that budget line item, and have through an amendment process in order to do it. So the answer is it depends by program.
All right, we're getting some more questions in here. For travel documentation, how may e-tickets be verified without paper boarding passes? Okay, so the e-ticket receipt should identify the travel dates. It should say ticketed on it and have a dollar amount. That is your receipt. The boarding pass just states that the traveler boarded the plane, but doesn't always or doesn't need to include a dollar amount on it. So for documentation purposes, the receipt document is the receipt. Does program income have to be MAP eligible expenses? Just program income. I'm not sure I understand that question. Whoever submitted this, if they want to send a little more information or additional details, we can take a look at it. Can you please clarify whether a comparison ticket is required for a travel visa? I think we covered that one already. What Kurt said is correct. The visa is separate from the e-ticket cost. So airfare plus visa and travel expenses. Yes.
For someone outside of the U.S. traveling, say, Mexico City to Peru, and they can take Air Mexico direct flight. But the U.S., there are U.S. carriers available, but it doesn't quite hit that 6-hour rule mark. Are they allowed to travel Air Mexico, or do they need to go the U.S. route? Take them back to the U.S. and then.
So if federal funds are involved, they have to abide by the requirements of the Fly America Act. So if it doesn't exceed the threshold of 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever it is, then the answer is no, they could not. They would have to fly.
Back to the U.S.
Well,
there's no between the 2 points, no direct flight between Mexico City and Peru, Lima. They don't have to fly to the U.S. and then back down, do they?
well, then it might extend the travel time by the travel time exemption, you know, by extra 6 hours or whatever, I don't know. So that, I mean, there's the flow chart that we did a while ago for the Fly America Act thing still stands.
It doesn't address, I mean, it doesn't address that. If they're both, there was in that flow chart you had, if both destinations are outside the United States.
Right.
And then there was, but the question is if the U.S. carrier serves that or not. And if there, the direct flight, there isn't any. Doesn't that
So
mean?
if the U.S. carrier does not serve it,
Yeah,
then that's
but if you
an
interpret it, oh, a U.S. carrier means you fly back up to the United States.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, you never have to fly people to the U.S. and then back out. That would be
Okay.
a ridiculous waste of time.
We had a disagreement on that question, that's why.
It's still less than the 6-hour rule on the U.S. carrier.
Yeah, what if it took you like an extra, say, 3-hour detour to Houston and then down to Peru?
It's like
But
10 hours.
But your the route is from outside the U.S. to
Yeah, outside the
U.S.
or even in terms of Mexico City,
You don't have to consider coming, well, I could fly back to the U.S. or I could fly, it's.
But in the chart, it says 2 points outside the U.S. and a direct flight. So from Mexico City to Guadalajara, you don't have to fly to the U.S. and then fly to, right?
No.
Right. But that was it. We had different interpretations.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have another question from the app. For our employees in foreign offices that use their personal cell phones to also make work calls, can the work calls be billed to FAS? Okay, did everyone get that? Can I repeat it? For employees in foreign offices who use their personal cell phones to make work calls as well, can the work calls be billed to FAS? I see yeses, I see nos. So first thing, if calls are reimbursable under the program, then yes, they may be, but you have to break them out every single call to verify and then prorate based on the overall expense. So by the time you've done that, you've probably spent more time in staff hours than you would have for the phone calls. But if it's allowable under the program, that's your prerogative. Another question, is alcohol allowable at STREE dinner events, assuming it's within the per diem limit? Oh, I'm glad we got this one. No. Alcohol is not a reimbursable expense unless it's integral to the program.
And by integral, we mean part of a promoted commodity. I mean, not part of, a promoted commodity. Not that you're trying to justify why they need to drink.
Yep.
Could the commodity be, or could the drink be your commodity into the drink? Into the drink, is that what's allowable? Just curious.
I'd reach out to your marketing specialist first. All the way in the back.
Yeah, so for having a reception, can alcohol be put in that at a reception? Because you have different categories under street.
No.
Yeah. No, that the category, the street category of cocktails is for the amount that you can bill per person to put on a cocktail reception. It's not approval to provide them with cocktails. Yeah, I mean, alcoholic beverages are universally disallowed by 2 CFR 200. I mean, for federal funds, it should not be a part of it. We are a unique circumstance that we have participants in these programs that happen to promote alcoholic beverages. So these programs are a bit unique. So what we're saying is you can continue to promote those alcoholic beverages, wine and craft beers and distilled spirits. But what we don't want to see people do is serving alcohol and then reimbursing it to the program. You can serve alcohol, you just pay for it with another source of funds. Just don't reimburse it to the program.
In the back? No, so we want to make a distinction here. Program income is income generated through program activities. It's not the same as contributions. So program income would be something like a conference registration fee that you're collecting from member organizations to attend a conference or to hold a hotel room.
Right, and his question was, can you use those funds to provide alcohol?
Right, so still program income has to be used for an allowable expenditure within the program, within the approved marketing activity. So alcohol, unless it's integral to the activity, would not be in the approved activity and therefore would not be reimbursable. Okay. Another question related to travel. We have an invoice from the travel agency and the actual e-ticket receipt, but the ticket receipt doesn't show any pricing information. It is only on the invoice from the agency. What additional backup do I need to provide or show? So that's interesting. Usually the e-ticket receipt has a price on it. So you may be looking at a ticketed itinerary or an itinerary. But in either case, you could reach back out to the travel agent and ask for an e-ticket receipt to clearly indicate the cost of travel for each passenger, if it's a group traveling together, if that's the concern, or for the allowable full fare economy. But if you're using a travel agent already, don't hesitate in reaching back out to them to get that information. Okay, open skies, we covered that. Program income. Is program income only applicable to MAP eligible expenditures, i.e. can overages of per diem be applied to program income? Okay, so again, program income must be spent on program expenditures that are part of the approved marketing plan or an approved activity. So if you're following your internal travel approvals, then potentially, yes, that could be applied. But before applying program income to anything that you're unsure about, I would say reach out to the marketing specialist.
But just again, program income is money that you earn from an activity, you know, from using funds. It's not contributions. It's if you, what was the word? Overage of
Overage of per diem, so
overage
exceeding the
yeah.
allowable rate.
So if your travelers exceed per diem, the amount that they exceed per diem is not program income to you. You could use it as a contribution, but it's not money that you earned off of the program.
Okay. I guess the app will stay up for a while, so we're going to keep watching it, and we can compile the questions that come in after this point and get back with some responses. But I'd say it's 4:30, and thank you all for
Can I say one thing real quick?
And Kurt
Please,
has something to say.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm having second thoughts about every answer I gave. But the one I want to talk about is the hotel contract one. So just to be clear, please don't game the system. You know, if you historically have an event that has 20 people at it, don't enter into a contract for 200 so that you have enough room in there to play, you know, to cover no-shows. That would be, yes. So I just want to be, you know, stuff like that, you know, a hotel contract in all cases is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It has to be reasonable. It has to be historically, yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
Oh, okay, we have a request for internal controls, but real quick first.
It was, the question is, what about an individual traveler that had to cancel their trip or wasn't able to attend? So I would refer you back to the original language in the FTR, which says something along the lines of, if I can't take my trip or if I can't do it, what happens? And you said, if you, and I don't know what, I can't quote it exactly, but if you undertook an effort to make things right and to get the money and whatever, then those costs could be considered. I would refer them to that language and say, can you justify to the compliance team, to everybody else, that you undertook a good faith effort to make the trip and, you know, and when it was not possible, get your money back, get a refund, whatever, and where they were ultimately not successful, present the case.
Okay, so we had a question about internal controls. Anything? Yeah. Okay, so under, jumping back to the self-assessment tool, under administrative and financial management, I guess we'll take a couple minutes to talk about internal controls, specifically related to contracting or to verification of expenditures. So that's setting up your approved contracting procedures, your fraud prevention plan. Do you have a separation of duties between somebody reviewing a contract, working on the contract, supervising that contractor, or pulling the claims together and submitting them? Do you have well-established internal control procedures?
So typically, when we're looking at how things are carried out by you as the participants in the program, we don't come across issues of things that come into managing funds well, right? I mean, you all are great stewards and do a lot with the funds. But what we have encountered and what has led to cases like where our Office of Inspector General has to get involved because it crosses the line to criminal activity is where we get things like false claims. And some situations can be prevented if you have appropriate internal controls in your processes. So the fraud prevention programs, I think a lot of times have focus on what you're doing with your financial management at the level, your organizational level. A lot of times what they don't then address is what do you do down the line with some of your operations. So if you are contracting with, say, a representative in another country to carry out activities, they submit invoices to you, but they may be also using other parties in country to carry out activities. Do you have controls to verify what's being sent to you is accurate, right? So we had a number of participants impacted just by one company, consultant in one of the foreign countries, and the main entity that they contracted with to carry out activities in that country would then subcontract basically with others to actually get some of the activities conducted. And those subcontractors would submit invoices to the main consultant, who then would submit it to one of you for payment. Now, if you don't at any point verify or have a process to go back to some of those subcontractors or have a way to identify those and make sure that what they're submitting matches up with what your overall consultant is sending to you. One of the cases we had is inflated invoices, right? So for years, we had basically this consultant group inflating invoices that were paid by the cooperators who just by good faith effort, right? What they submit, I'm going to take at face value. I trust my consultant. But it's not a matter of trust. It's then every once in a while, have you ever validated that what they've submitted you matches what was actually being passed to them for cost, right? So I know we had at least 5 groups in a recent case that were impacted by something like this. And we've had other groups where a foreign country consultant was adding an automatic increase with this, it was a percentage that was added to every invoice. But it was never questioned. What is that for? And so these are things that in the processes, those controls that are required to validate things or verify, we want to make sure that that's happening. If you don't ever double, check something or verify it, you open yourselves up to having things occur that will continue. I mean, we had at least 5 years of fraudulent claims submitted. So it could have been caught right away. Once that was identified, and I can't remember which of the groups, hopefully you all will share some of the experiences with each other so you can learn what was done to catch these things. But once the fraud was identified and all the other groups were notified, and it was pretty much found that the same thing was happening with all of them, one of you all, the participants, found a new consultant for that company, and the very first invoice they got, they went back to validate it, and the exact same type of thing was happening. But they caught it right away. So they had found that the people who actually done the work and the cost that was given to that consultant to then come back and get reimbursed for, they were doctoring those invoices very first time. So it's right there, it was stopped in its tracks, right? So these are things that when you're looking at your programs, if you could be a little more mindful in looking at what you're implementing for checks and balances on all the expenses. Is there any questions on that? India. And in this situation, we'll be pursuing barman activity for that consultant, so that hopefully they cannot do business with the government for specified number of years. But Ingrid.
So what you were just describing is the responsibility of the cooperator. Is it a part of the audit that you perform, or you're just saying that the cooperators need to do this for their own record keeping?
Well, the cooperators are ultimately responsible for all the monies that you are provided through the program. So you can be held responsible for the cost of that entire amount that was fraudulently claimed. And it's up to global programs to determine if they're going to waive it or not. They don't have to waive it. So in this situation, it was the subcontractor who alerted our participant, and why they did it, I'm not sure how it came about that they found out, but they made it known, hey, we just want you to know that's not us doing this, but we understand they're taking our invoices and they're doctoring them before they send them on to you. And so that's the only way it came about. It wasn't something that any of us identified, right?
Is this something that you, like during an audit, if you ask us, if you say, hey, are you doing any of these checks and balances to verify, is this something that you're just kind of, you said just saying, hey, make sure you do this, or are you asking, are you gonna say, can you show us proof that you have?
Yeah, we are wanting staff to start asking some of those questions. Like in your process, what are you doing to validate what you're being given for the costs from this consultant, right? What management controls do you have in place? The 2 CFR does outline requirements for internal controls, and there's also the Green Book, and you can Google that. But Financial Management Integrity Acts have required since the 50s, and that's one act that came out of different ones for management of government funds. We are supposed to have these type of controls in place where we're expending government funds. But have we always been good about following things to make sure we have these things in place? You know, not as well as we could have, right? And then we learn through situations like this, all those monies that could have been spent doing something else that would have been much more productive for everyone. Okay, just wanted to get that plug in there just because we have had a number of different situations And particularly with this one, it impacted several of our participants from just one entity.
So before we go, first, thank you, Kim, for that. Really important stuff to think about. And hopefully you can use this new tool, this self-assessment, to check yourself. And we wanted to thank you because this self-assessment tool, as well as the other tools, came directly from feedback that you provided to us on the compliance review process. So please keep the dialogue going. We're here to work with you, and we're happy to do so. So thank you again, Kim. Thank you, Katina. Thank you, Kurt, for being willing to hop up one more time. And all of our staff in the audience, and all of you, if there aren't more questions. Well, thank you if there are more questions also, but.
If you haven't had a chance to meet one of the reviewers that'll be coming out to see you this year, we will have staff staying for like an extra hour after this session. If you want to take advantage of saying hello, please do so.